iHeartRadio presents Podversations, a weekly discussion with the biggest names and influencers in podcasting.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Noel Brown. I think I got the beginning of that cut off. Just to reiterate, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the speaker series. My name is Noel Brown, and I'm a lead executive producer and a podcast host here at iHeart. Thanks so much for tuning in. We've been doing these the last several weeks running, and they've been going really well, and really love the opportunity to be able to do one of these. Will was out this week, and so I am picking up the mantle here. In addition to all the podcast stuff that I do, I've also been a lifelong music nerd and a home recording enthusiast and record collector, and I've been incredibly lucky to have been put in charge of overseeing our slate of music podcasts. I give you this background so that you can understand just how kind of freaked out in the best possible way I was to find out that we were bringing on a podcast to the network called Questlove Supreme. So my internal monologue when I hear this is, okay, so I get to work on a show where Questlove interviews musical legends once a week. And so basically 16-year-old me and 36-year-old me both kind of collectively lost our minds. But it's been fantastic. Questlove is a man who really doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to give you a quick rundown just for a sense of the scope of this man's incredible career. Here goes. Co-founder, co-frontman, and drummer of Philadelphia's legendary and Grammy Award-winning hip-hop band The Roots. DJ, record producer, Broadway producer, New York Times bestselling author, band leader of The Tonight Show, and podcaster. I'm super excited to welcome Amir Questlove Thompson.
Thank
Amir,
you.
Thanks for joining us, man. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, you should be my main MC from now on. Kind of like how James Brown has Danny Ray introduce him every night. I like that.
So I actually grew up in Augusta, Georgia, kind of in always surrounded by James Brown lore, and I worked at a music store. They would rent equipment from us, and I would set it up for them at the Imperial Theater, this local theater, so they could do their rehearsals because it was cheaper than bringing their gear out of storage. And so I know Danny Ray very well, and that whole it was like a big part of my youth.
Nice.
But I appreciate you making the time, especially considering how much you have going on literally all the time. I like many
even now, yes, always.
Yeah. You do these DJ sets every night on Instagram Live that are a joy, and really I think especially with all the insanity and craziness going on through COVID and now with these protests, you just have a way of unifying people and making people feel kind of connected, and I've tuned in for them often and really appreciate the kind of calm attitude you bring to all of this and your wisdom. But I appreciate that. I think of you because of that and many other things as kind of being, James Brown was always called the hardest working man in show business. I think of you as carrying that torch in a lot of ways, and you've been working since you were a kid. Tell us a little bit about how you basically grew up on stage.
The short version is that I was born inside of a musical family. My father was an oldies doo-wop legend from the 50s who, by the time I was born, was experiencing his first nostalgia period. So anybody that was popping between 1954 to 1961, their fan base was now in their 30s and 40s, and so what we now know as the nostalgia circuit, which is happening right now. It should be happening right now for anybody that released music in the 2000s. So what's weird about my family environment was that I wasn't. My family didn't believe in babysitters, so you had to join the family business. So, and the fastest way possible is that I think at the age of 6, they made me the human GPS. I was the person that had to take notes on, excuse me, how do you get to da club, and write down the instructions. Okay, sure. Make a left, make a right. And then when I was 8, they put me on wardrobe details. So they taught me how to iron, press, steam, clean, run stuff to the cleaners, shine stuff. And then when I was 10, I was on light duty, which is really weird. And, I still ask my mom to this day, like, was it normal for a 10-year-old kid to go to a nightclub to start cutting light gels and getting a ladder and putting in colors and all those things and operating the system? Like, they did 5 shows a night. So
Sure.
There was just a whole new set of rules in the 70s and 80s that you couldn't get away with now. Like, no kid would have been allowed in a nightclub, but 10-year-old me knew how to operate the light systems and do the sound and do the monitors and all that stuff. And then my drumming career just happened, just, not by accident, but just sort of like my dad's drummer got in a motorcycle accident, so his left arm wasn't operational, and Dad just shrugged like, well, all right, the show. Go get him a suit jacket at Macy's. We were at Radio City Music Hall, and I went to Macy's, got a sport jacket, and did my very first show, band leading my dad's band at the age of 12 in front of 6,000 people at Radio City Music Hall. And then he realized that I was a way cheaper musical director than anyone else. So I did that up until the Roots. My first show with him was at Radio City Music Hall across the street from where I work now at the Tonight Show.
Sure.
And my very last show was at Madison Square Garden the night before we exiled the Roots to London to live there for 4 years to start our music career.
Sure. And, you obviously are a New York guy these days, and that's a huge, city for anybody in the music industry. But all of this Roots stuff really goes back to Philadelphia. I saw earlier this year, right before COVID happened, I went to this podcast conference in Brooklyn, and I saw your Roots co-founder, Tariq Blackthought, do a really cool candid conversation with the comedian Wyatt Cenac.
Right.
And, they started off talking about like which of them had the best beard, and I don't think there was a clear winner. I think Tariq wins in my book, but Wyatt asked about how the Roots got started, and it all went back to a place that seemed just like kind of like this mythical, magical place, just from hearing the story of the Philadelphia High School for Creative and Performing Arts, or CAPA. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience there? I mean, I know like Boys to Men singing a cappella in one room, jamming in the band room, and like it just seemed, I loved the story and it made my imagination go wild. Can you tell about how you and Tariq connected and some of the other amazing people that you've met through going there?
This is the most unlikely story ever, and I'm going to try and tell it the fastest way possible, because if you allow me, this will be a 9-hour miniseries. All right, so from elementary to 8th grade, I went to Performing Arts, the private version. And then my parents, wanting me to sort of steer me into some Ivy League direction, took me out and put me in this like nerdy college prep school for like 2 years, which was, but my heart was in the arts. And so the key component was there was a local dance show in Philadelphia called Dancing on Air, later dubbed Dance Party USA. People know that that's the show that Kelly Ripa got her start at. So think of like a local like Soul Train like show. So there were 2 girls on the show that me and my best friend were in love with, and we wrote them damn near stalker level like every week, hoping to get our letter read on the air. Long story short, I got to meet the girl that I chose. My best friend didn't, but I later found out that she went to performing arts school. So I figured out a way to finagle my way out of this nerdy college prep school and back into performing arts, because I really wanted to take music and all that stuff, like at least my last 2 years. So I don't know how I conned my parents into doing this, but by 11th grade, I'm at performing arts school. First time I'm in public school. And, it's sort of like a fish out of water, like, wow, what's this? That sort of thing. I find out that the girl that my best friend from my other school likes works in the principal's office during the second period to hand out school tokens. And in order to get these school tokens, you have to have an ID. So I go to this principal's office. They told me sit on the bench and wait to get my picture taken for ID for school tokens. And literally the the NTA or the school guard is kind of pushing in, like, think of like by the ear, like the school troublemaker, like get in there, get in there.
Yeah.
And he's suspending. This is the first day of school, maybe the first week of school. I think it's the first day. It might be the third day of school. He's suspending this kid for fooling around with a girl in the bathroom, and that's how Tariq and I meet.
So you like start off as like nemesis in a weird way.
Well, in a way, like the only way I could consider it, like if you remember in Ferris Bueller's Day Off when Jennifer, what's her name, is like at the police station meeting Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
Like the like it was like the Prince and the Pauper type thing. Like I was a sheltered kid, had no experience in life. Like everyone I hung with were adults. I didn't hang around with other teenagers, and this is like exciting. Like I'm in public school for the first time, and there's a cafeteria. Like the schools I went to were like just 28 students, and he just became like this mythical, legendary figure. So cut to about maybe 3 months later, the prettiest girl in school and is in line waiting for tokens, and I'm trying to figure out a way to like sort of finagle my way into their conversation. And I just straight up lied. They were talking about Prince, and it's like, oh, I know about Prince. I'm gonna get in this conversation. So I get in there, and then I corrected them about something, like, no, that was a B-side. And they're looking at me like, who are you? Like, why are you in our conversation like that? And I said something like, yeah, we sampled that song at the studio last night. And they're like, what studio? Oh, my group. And they're like, what group? And Tariq just happened to be in the lunchroom, and I was just like, with that guy. So cut to me like running to him later, like, yo, if anybody asks you, we're a group, okay? And he's just like, yeah, okay, cool. And that's literally what has me talking to you right now. It's all seeded in a lie.
It's serendipity, man. But that's like, it's the same way you became a band leader. It's serendipity. Like you kind of see these opportunities and you just roll with them.
Yeah, I knew it, and I just took it. I mean, it should be noted that Tariq, his freestyle prowess was also legendary in that school. Like, whereas everyone else would play the dozens.
Right.
Your mom's so fat.
Right.
On the shelves to be continued. But like with Tariq, he could rhyme that. And so that made him a legend. So in short, that's the seeds of the roots right there.
It's such a cool, I mean, I don't know, like I said, when I heard Wyatt and Tariq talking about it, I just pictured this kind of mythical scene of like, worlds colliding and all that. And that sounds like it was about right. Really quickly, I just want to let the folks watching know that if you have some questions you want to submit, there is a Q&A box in your webinar interface, I guess you could call it, and so feel free to shoot some, and we'll look at those near the end of the session. So for me, Things Fall Apart was this like kind of gateway into hip hop. It was that record that had me discover like your earlier stuff, like Do You Want More? And then I got into Wu-Tang and Outkast, and even being in Georgia, I was listening to you guys before I even got into Outkast. So it was just a really big kind of musical gateway for me. And I remember riding around in my friend's car when I was like 15 or 16, and he put on You Got Me on this Discman with the little cassette adapter,
Discman.
Yeah, for sure. And it's actually funny because in the story I'm about to talk about, that comes up as well as like how you first heard the demo of You Got Me.
Right.
But really quickly, the music nerd in me has to ask, the drumming on that, I'm sure you hear this a lot. It's some of the most like precision drumming I've ever heard. I remember thinking it was a drum machine until you kind of humanize it with this crazy drum and bass breakdown at the end. And it's almost like you're kind of playing a little audio trick on the listeners. Like, was that your goal, or was it just kind of what happened naturally? Or I know you're really versatile as a drummer, but some of the root stuff, and that one in particular, you play with this mechanized kind of precision that is almost like otherworldly.
By that point in 1997, this will be our fourth attempt for world domination, which really doesn't happen. Like if you're a rap group, you got one chance, maybe two chances, and like who gets to their fourth album before they get to their breakout moment. As I mentioned before, doing that last show at Madison Square Garden, we had made a decision to exile to London for fear that we were going to get dropped by our label. We were on Geffen Records at the time. So the morning that Kurt Cobain had taken his life, we panicked that Geffen was going to just dismantle their entire black music department. And they actually did. So sensing that hammer was about to fall down, we decided, okay, we're going to take the rest of our budget money, get this apartment in London as a hub, and then we're just going to get an agent and go tour all of Europe, all that we can. So 3 years straight, played everything, played basements, clubs, houses, like whoever would take us, and just build our reputation on that. So in living in London, I got to meet a cat named Digo, who is part of a band called For Hero. And essentially, like, I'll say that junglist or jungle music, that type of drumming that I'm doing on that particular song with like the stutter stop, and actually, you know, Timberland would perfect it later on a lot of his early work. That was the trap music of the day back in London. You know, they would remix these songs. The first time I went in the nightclub, they played like Anita Baker's Sweet Love, and we're laughing at each other like, wait, why is everyone going crazy? Like, this smells like Teen Spirit. And then the second the drums came in, right, it was like chaos, moshing everywhere. And we're like, yo, America doesn't know about this. So at the time in doing You Got Me, I wanted some sort of platform or excuse that would allow me to introduce that style of drumming. And it was a battle because like that was our do or die moment. Like, this song could make or break us. And there was concern, like, if it's too radical, then, you know, this might not be palatable for radio. So I decided at the end, okay, I'll just do it at the end instead of the whole song. Initially, the entire song was supposed to be like drum and bass. But
is there a version that exists like that, like in the archives somewhere? Yeah.
Yeah. We just released Things Fall Apart 20. The box set with outtakes and B-sides and other demos that didn't make the record. So I put a version on there with Jill Scott singing You Got Me, where it's entirely drum and bass. Yeah.
So I was referencing Jill Scott. She wrote the song. There's a fantastic interview, the first part of which is already out on Questlove Supreme, where you sit down with your dear friends. And like, I mean, you guys were in high school together, or at least, you know, came up together around the same time where she was doing poetry slam stuff. And you didn't go to the same school, but you knew each other like early in those days. She originally did the vocal on that song, and then found out that she got replaced by Erykah Badu in real time, listening to it on the radio out in the world. I want people to tune into the episode to hear that story, but it really is a fantastic story where it kind of gives you a glimpse of, you know, how her career developed beyond that, and how what seemed like a really big stutter in the road for her ultimately just made her, I don't know, like it really just made you guys closer. Yeah. It was a weird blessing in disguise. But we're getting up on time, and I want to get some of these questions from the audience. So I want to quickly just ask you, pivot to talking about advertising. You know, you at your show, I know you think of as an extension, everything you do, you think of an extension of yourself and your brand and all of that. And to me, I can sum that up with one word: it's authentic. So it follows that when you're working with advertisers, it would be very important to you to only read ads for things that you really care about. Like, I know you do stuff with some meatless products where you do these cheesesteaks that you're, you know, connected with, and clearly that is something that you're putting creativity into. It's important to you for you to be connected with stuff that you actually care about. So can you give me some examples of things that you care about, like categories of brands or advertisers that you think are a good fit for you or for the listeners of Questlove Supreme?
Well, as of now, you know, we worked a lot this past year. We've done nice work with Sonos. I mean, these are products that we actually use. I mean, I personally am very interested in sort of like the new food space, the what you would say alternative food space. Even though I'm not a vegan, I am environmentally conscious, and we are living right now. We're literally living in history. Like
Yep.
it's being written right now. So there are people that want to be on the right side of history, and for me at least, I'm very much interested in working with the products that I use in my everyday life. And so pretty much, I walk it like I talk it. And this also is the same for the other 5 people on the show, with Fonte from Little Brother, and Laia and Sugar Steve, and Unpaid Bill who was part of my partner in Hamilton, and he also did In the Heights. Like it's sort of a draw straws thing. Like, okay, well, you guys get this one today, and we, I think I did 1 or 2 Sonos commercials, but pretty much I'm very, very much interested in products that I feel is on point with our brand and where we stand in the world today.
I think the alternative food thing is a big one too, because again, I already see, just following your Instagram, that this is something that you're dabbling in and making recipes in, and it's something that's very much part of your life. So I think
I'm proud to say that I was the first guinea pig for Impossible Foods, Impossible company, back when they were just like 4 nerdy scientists trying to prove to me that their hamburgers were better than Shake Shack. It was like a dare, like,
right.
Yeah, right, get out of here.
Come on.
And then once I tasted the proof, then I was like, I'll do anything, to make sure that this is revolutionary.
Yeah. Well, Ben, that's it for my questions. I'm going to do a few from the audience, and then we can wrap this up. Thanks again for sitting down. This has been awesome. Elena asks, best album to make you happy, make her happy, make one happy, other than The Roots. Well, I mean, again, tune into Questlove's DJ sets, but give us an album that is big for you.
I'm an album person. It's kind of hard to find an album that makes me happy, because I live in the age of playlist right now.
Right.
I will say that this week alone, my girlfriend and I fell into a rabbit hole of Carole King. Once did a children's record called Really Rosie. So I'll say that between that and Marlo Thomas's Free to Be You and Me, that's like our happy place. Like, we played that on Saturday, and last Saturday was not the happiest day for me at all. So, like, at the rate where, near 50-year-old people are resorting to the records they listened to when they were 8 years old, shows you what type of world we listen to right now.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'll tell you, man,
that's my go-to moment.
I recently discovered Minnie Riperton outside of Lovin' You. The end credits of Us, it has the song La Fleur, I believe it's called.
Her first album is a masterpiece.
It's incredible. Come to My Garden. It's a psychedelic kind of R&B masterpiece.
Charles Stephanie.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. And so I've gotten to stuff like that, and Dionne Warwick, and a lot of the big kind of schmaltzy Burt Bacharach kind of production stuff. Like that's. Right. I'm not that this question was for me. I'm just a music nerd. I had to drop that.
I'll say that Come to My Garden is probably perfect from beginning to end. Perfect. Yep. The perfect playable album. Yes.
All right. We've got one from Anonymous here. If you could perform with any musical icon, past or present, who would it be? I know you've already performed with a lot of your heroes, but if there's anyone that you hadn't, who would it be?
Having the job I have right now on the Tonight Show has put me in great company. So I've played with absolutely everyone. The one person on that list that would make it complete, and she's releasing new product this year. It's our dream to just be in the presence of Sade. But literally I played with this year alone, like the Isley Brothers, Lionel Richie, Stevie Wonder. I played with Prince a whole bunch. Sting, Bruce Springsteen, like my checklist is I'm satisfied.
Oh yeah. No,
I'm satisfied.
For sure. Okay, how about this one from Bailey? Do your musical influences change? Like, obviously you have your go-tos from when you were a kid and things that have affected you throughout your life, but do you ever find a new artist that just really hits it for you and makes you like reinvigorates you? The question is, who's your biggest influence right now?
Kind of the beauty in shuffle culture or with streaming culture is like the world's now your oyster. You can carry your entire music collection inside this device now. So I mean, every day varies. Like right now, just looking at his political activism, especially with his relationship with the Nigerian government. Right now, returning back to Fela just to see his fearlessness and to see, I called once in 2003 that, during this time period, we would get more socially conscious songs, and I was wrong. But now I feel in 2020, in a sincere, non-performative way, I think that we're going to get a lot of material that really reflects life as it is now. Like we kind of been in this law since 1997 where it's like being apolitical and not speaking your truth and not wanting to be the downer to show people what life was out. I think people are really now to the point where they have to say the truth and say what's going on in the world today. So I'm listening to Fela Kuti from Nigeria.
Not to mention that everyone's kind of been cocooned up in this weird bubble where maybe they're getting to be creative for the first time or revisiting creativity.
I talk about this in my book. Yes. I think this is the best time. Like for a lot of people, I'm calling them daily. Like, what's your process now? Like now that you have silence, like in the Creative Quest book, I told people that being bored is probably the most important thing that you can be, because silence is where the ideas come in. And oftentimes, like when we're bored, we just want to entertain ourselves. And, we live in times now where you have to sit silent so that you personally don't go insane, like not overdoing it on the news. We're all quarantined with our family members. So people are like finding closets in the house just to sit in for a half hour, just to listen to silence. So, there is a creative silver lining in what we're in right now.
To that end, with social injustice at the forefront of these conversations, some of our roles still are about creating paid marketing with ad campaigns. How do you see that? Like, it's obviously you don't want to have to tiptoe around it. We've seen so much advertising shifting to being very COVID centric, and we know how things have changed. How do you make that part of the advertising conversation without it seeming opportunistic or icky in some way? Yeah,
disingenuous.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like what I think we've been experiencing the last month or so is that people now know the effects of where the average everyday person stands, and I see everyone getting in line. I mean, the fact that I just got a notice from Chase Bank today talking about taking off for Juneteenth, something I never thought I'd hear in this lifetime. I now see, I wished for the day in which advertisers and companies really operate under kind of the right side of history. And there have been times where, I've seen a lot of these ads where, from companies that don't support things that I support, like anti-prison labor and all those things. But now, slowly, I'm starting to see that they're at least having the conversation and getting it together. So, now, as I said, we're living in history right now. So, hopefully, that advertisers will step up to bat and do the right thing.
You really answered a handful of these questions that were kind of around that, and I appreciate it. The last question comes from Sean, and then we'll wrap. Is there a new Roots album coming? And
yes,
so,
I've been threatening the Endgame album for like a year and a half now.
Got it.
And like, as soon as quote this is over, yes, it's coming.
Awesome. Well, Amir, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure for me, and I hope for the folks at home. Really appreciate you sitting down with me and chatting about all this stuff.
Well, I thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And everyone, next week on the 25th, we're going to keep this speaker series rolling with the No Sports Report with Jensen Karp.
Nice.
Well, we had to, figure out how do we do a sports show when there's no sports. And so we launched the No Sports Report. That's all about how to enjoy sports and continuing following this thing that means so much to so many people in an interesting time where there aren't any sports being played or where people aren't spectating. So you can find out all about that next week. Amir, thanks again, man. And thank you all at home for checking it out.
Podversations is a production of iHeartRadio. You can find more from the biggest names in podcasting on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.